Hello, Future Tribe. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. On this week's episode, I've got Ian Lingren from PayMe. How are you today, Ian?
Oh, I'm really good, thank you, Jermaine.
No
It's
worries. Thanks for joining
nice to
us.
be here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cold morning in Canberra, but it's nice to be talking to someone who can sympathise with what I'm feeling.
No,
Tell
I certainly can. It's only going to get warmer.
Yeah, hopefully, and then it'll get too hot, but that's Canberra for you.
It is.
um, tell me a bit about PayMe before we get started.
Pay me. I reckon my wife always says that Pay me is an accidental company.
Hmm.
Uh, and it really is when I sit back and think about it. There's a bit of a story to it. I had 21 odd years in the regular army and then got injured in my last deployment to Egypt and Israel. There's an area called the Sinai Peninsula, where I worked. I got injured in there. Nothing too bad physically, but it's effectively stopped me from working full time since the year 2000. And so Pay Me kind of came about as that because I essentially had to work from home to do something. I either had to retire totally or do something. And so I started Pay Me at home with no clients, with no idea about how to do or run a business because I'd always been in the army. And essentially, I think within the first 6 months, we had $600,000 turnover. The next year, it was 9 million and then 15 million. And thankfully, it didn't quite grow that fast every year because it would have given me a lot more grey hairs. But it just boils down to some simple recipes, and we've had a great time. I didn't stay inside our house for that long, and we've got a few offices around the country now, and it's a service that helps white collar contractors.
Yeah, that's amazing. So looking at your website, you are Australia's largest contractor payroll company. Have you stayed within Australia, or have you thought about going across the pond, so to speak?
We have actually operated all over the world. Certainly didn't shy away from trying new business lines,
Mm-hmm.
but what I found was that for very good reasons, the Australian employment and payroll market has a lot of regulation around it to protect people like you and me and everyone that works in Australia. Those protections, they aren't there in the rest of the world. So, for example, if I was speaking to an American company and suggested that someone needed to have maternity leave, or heaven forbid, paternity leave,
Mm-hmm.
and that you needed to actually, it was your responsibility if you paid someone in Australia, that if they asked for it, they were entitled to it. These types of things blew people away overseas. So in the end, I didn't pursue those business lines because the battles to convince people that when you operate in Australia, you've got to operate the way we operate, it became too large. So we
Yeah.
just boiled things down to having fun because there's no use working unless you're having fun, I don't
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, having fun, because I think that fun means that you're passionate about what you're doing, or you're at the very least you're enjoying what you're doing, which I think everyone should aim to do, because that's when I think, do your best work. Because if you're not really having fun or enjoying what you're doing, then there's probably something else that you should be doing that could bring
It
that.
is, and you can learn some huge lessons from that in business as your business grows. And we often say people do business with people they trust,
Yeah.
and if you have trust, you have fun, and you really enjoy supporting each other.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that trust component is really important as well. I mean, you've been in business for a lot longer than I have, but you do realize that it is all about trust. You can sign all the contracts and do all that fun stuff. But at the end of the day, if there's no trust in it, then as I like to say, there's no point turning back to a sheet of paper with some, ink on it. If everything was to fall apart, because what's that going to do at the end of the day?
Exactly,
It's
exactly, and it affects the whole team, not just yourself. If you really have that cohesive team at work, everyone feels the pressure if something isn't working.
Yeah, and it sort of makes you feel like so future theory, my business, we're a family business. My brother's involved in it. And you know, we try and sort of spread that family feel. And uh I just find that having that sort of level of rapport as well just means that you're a unit and you're working towards a common goal, and you're
Yes.
helping, you want to help your customers and your clients, and they become part of the family. And you know, when they're doing it tough, especially given COVID and everything else that we're sort of experiencing at the moment, working from home, I think just really important that you bring back those probably old school, or you know, someone would call them old school sort of business values, but um, it certainly stood out to me as important.
I know, look, I think that it's very true. And like your business, our business is a family business. Every single person in my family is in the business, um, including my daughter-in-law.
Wow.
So uh, it really truly is a family business across all four companies. Because really, it's
Yeah,
greater
yeah.
than PayMe. It's you have another a smaller company, payroll company called Just Pays,
Mhm.
and in order to protect ourselves and diversify, we have a car leasing company, which is Canberra's only car leasing company, by the way. Just a little marketing plug there, I suppose. But we also have a recruitment company. Again, one of Canberra's oldest recruitment companies called Effective People, which we acquired a few years ago. But it just gives us that stability and variety for the family members to operate in, and make sure we've got some longevity,
Yeah,
so that
that's
we're a
amazing because
good, safe
you
business.
you run the four businesses together with your wife, is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. I mean,
Both she and I are essentially uh, a board, for want of a better word, and we have one external advisor, our accountant,
mhm.
so that to keep us honest, to
Yeah.
ask what we're doing. But we also, outside of that, we have our children that say the same thing, and can question us, and that's, I think, very wise, so that you don't
Yeah.
don't accidentally make errors.
That's amazing. It's just, it sounds like a truly sort of family business. Now, when did you start all this? Was it in the early 2000s, did you say?
Yeah, it was. After I got injured, I had about a year resting on my back because I couldn't move,
Mhm.
and then I tried to work again, but I just couldn't. And uh, although I tried to consult back into defence, it just wouldn't work. So I started this about January 2005, with just myself, uh, and this office actually that I'm sitting in right now,
Mhm.
and that's where I figured that I'd stay for the rest of my working life, because I was told I wouldn't be able to work any further than that, yeah,
Yeah.
from a medical point of view.
Wow. Now,
So it's been
if you don't mind
been
me
a battle.
asking, how old are you now?
I'm 58.
58. Okay, so you were sort of mid to late 40s when all this happened to you.
Yeah.
What was it like? Did you have a feeling of sort of having to start afresh, having to start anew? Was that sort of one of the sensations or one of the things you had to get
It
past?
was. It was. I always liken it to you know what it's like when you leave school. You have those butterflies in your stomach.
Yeah.
You've got another career to go to, and that's essentially what I likened it to. It was, do I take this big step forward into something, and do I back myself? And I did. My wife supported me by working full time uh, in the public service, and we went from there, just following a simple recipe to what I thought was really important. Things that I've always, as you said before, the simple, old-fashioned things in life sometimes are more effective than the more complex, highly theoretical ways that people approach things these days.
Hmm.
I always think that a leader, if you are fair, firm, and friendly, you're a good leader. I'd probably add the word authentic these days, but those are the things that I've always focused on, rather than any greater theoretical approach to it. I've certainly studied them, but that's what it boils down to me.
Now, give us an idea across these four companies. I know we're talking about PayMe in, I guess, with a bit more focus, but across the four companies, how many staff do you sort of manage?
Not a large amount, 28. So we have, I think, 20 in, or 18 in Canberra,
Hmm.
18 in Canberra across three companies out of Deakin. And my wife manages those on a day-to-day basis. We have another 8 for our car leasing company spread between Canberra and Brisbane. And we have a manager that manages that on a day-to-day basis, but throughout the day. But to start every day, we zoom in and huddle with what we call huddle with everybody in the company. Every company runs to the same beat.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay. So across all four companies, everyone meets on Zoom. Did you say every
yep,
day?
every day,
And for how
every
long does
day.
that happen usually?
It goes for about 10 to 12 minutes,
Hmm.
and it's kind of the core focus of doing business for us. We follow what's called the Rockefeller Habits, which is a habit. If you have a habit, then usually it happens every day.
Hmm.
So our days start at 8:45 in the morning, where everybody zooms in and everyone goes across the three most important priorities that they've got to do today. The 3 or 4 pieces of interesting data that they achieved yesterday, and perhaps I think probably the most important thing: what are the stucks that are holding you back? And they could be stucks like the computer system's broken, or my husband's being a pain, if you're my partner's being a pain, just to give a bit of a laugh, or it can be something serious, and it just binds the team together. Everyone gets synchronised, and it can be things like, oh, I haven't been able to communicate with Alliance Leasing yesterday. I haven't been able to communicate with PayMe, and it usually is just a human factor, and we just get over it on the spot, sort it out, and sort it out offline afterwards, and it gets the whole group synchronized every day.
Wow, that's really amazing and interesting. I've never heard of that that sort of approach to it, and I can see the real benefits. And no doubt, it also I think helps everyone operate as a family because you're sort of sharing the things that are the annoyances, the little wins, the little not so great things mixed in with all the good stuff. Have you guys been doing that even before sort of this work from home COVID sort of situation that we're dealing with?
Yeah, we've been doing it since 2010, I would say.
Hmm. Wow.
From 2006 to about 2010, I reckon I essentially ran the companies with my wife's support uh, and the team's support, and just did the best I could, like anybody does. We all do our best. We all try to analyse, how can we do it better? And like most people, I was stuck in that rut of having a weekly meeting,
Hmm.
which essentially goes over everything that we covered through the week. And then we came across the Rockefeller Habits, which is based on John D. Rockefeller, which is and the way he performed his daily functions, and the way he started work every day was that he walked to work with his senior executives, and they effectively huddled. They talked about the things that were going on, and then when they got to work, talked to their team members, and everyone was synchronised. So that's essentially why we took that process up, and then it goes on from, you have this kind of a beat to the way you do business. You go day, week. So you go the same process all through the day. You get to Friday, and Friday's the day where you cover off on the key pieces of information that you might have heard of during that week, what your competitors are up to. You might, I think monthly, we do specific training. So we have this routine where it's day week, week, day month, and a day month, day quarter, where the quarterly meetings are actually even
Wow.
focused on quarterly themes.
Hmm.
And if we stick to that, everybody doesn't matter what company you're in, or even if you move down to Canberra for a little while from, say, Brisbane, or from our Perth office come to Canberra, you just synchronise right in. You just feel as though you're in the same office.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, it's really that sort of, you use the word beat, and I would say you sort of, your heartbeat sort of starts to sync, and then without getting too sort of philosophical, I mean, the staff are really, or the humans behind a company are really the heartbeat of a company. So you're just really synchronizing it all across the board, so that you are all on the same page. You're sharing the wins, the failures, and I think it gives a nice opportunity. 10 15 minutes isn't a significant amount of time, but it's enough that you can quickly rattle off any points. And then if someone has, someone hears it and goes, oh, I know exactly what I need to talk to Jermaine about. When this happened to me 6 months ago, this is the approach that I took. Or, when XYZ company isn't very responsive, all you got to do is call Mike at
Exactly.
regional, whatever, and you just sort of solve those problems. That if you're doing that weekly, it starts to become this droning, like 10 to 15 minutes is worst case scenario bearable. Worst case scenario.
Yeah, it is. And there's an art to it. You should stand up,
Yeah.
because once people sit down, they get all relaxed and nice and comfy and cuddly, and you tend to waffle a bit sometimes. If you stand up, it's just boom, 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 and you're through it. And then the day starts, and anything that was raised during the day that's like a stuck, well, then you take it offline and sort it out offline.
Yeah, definitely. I think because you can fall into the trap of sitting down, getting a coffee that's warm. You
Yeah.
don't really want to get into the day, and you just end up, if I rattle on for 5 or 10 minutes, then maybe the next person will, and that'll become a half an hour, 45 sort of minute excuse to not get your day started and just procrastinate.
Yes.
So
You've just got to have total trust and things like that. But I'm sure you'll ask me about that later. Trust is just so important, and knowing everyone's strengths and weaknesses really just enhances it.
yeah, that is something that I want to touch on now. That's why I asked you how many people you manage, and you've got remote locations as well, or locations that are remote to where you're based from. So you've got 18 staff in Canberra based out of Deakin, and then you've got, say, another 10 spread out elsewhere. How do you manage what everyone's doing, and how do you keep on top of everyone's tasks, and especially as you sort of scale up? Because when it was just yourself, would have been very easy, because you just check in with yourself and make sure that you're on track. And then what was sort of the next jump from that? So 6 months in, I think you said you're doing about 600K in revenue.
Yeah, I think for me the key thing is having the right staff that have the same core values as yourself. You'd know yourself from running a business, you tend to be a workaholic. Many people would characterize you as a workaholic.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that if you've got something to do, you don't go home at the end of the day, or you don't leave it undone. And to find people that can actually work in the same way, even though they're not the owners, is difficult. So for us, we have a set of core values that we outline. They're very simple, just four of them, and from there we bring our people on and train them, and we find that probably about only 1 out of 5 people get through our probation period, because it's hard to demonstrate the same core values that we have, the desire to know that the people out there that are using our services actually pay us.
Mm-hmm.
So they're the people you've got to look after, not the boss or anybody else. It's the people that you're giving services to, because ultimately if you don't please them, then your business goes out of business and your job disappears. So we focus on the core values, what people display, how their written expression, their verbal expression, and just willingness to get in and do the job throughout the day, and not just, I know it sounds terrible, clock watch, but if you have a 12:30 lunch break for an hour, well, look, just have your lunch break throughout the day sometime, because you never know, when your clients are going to call up and need your help. And if you have a team member that's willing to just put their lunch down, go and help them, and then come back and finish their lunch, and maybe, take a half hour earlier off that day because they missed the whole lunch period, that's a great private business model, and it doesn't take away. I don't think it takes away from the fact that you're removing any of the workplace rights, so to speak, for the people, because you give to your team and they give to you, and then it's a good team environment.
That's it. I think, like you mentioned, especially given what services you guys offer, Australia is very legislated. There are a lot of rules and things in place to make sure that it's fair. And I think that's a very good. But you shouldn't see it as sort of this rigid thing, because just because your lunch breaks from 12:30 to 1:30, like you said, if something goes wrong at 12:25 and it's going to take you half an hour to fix it, you would hope that someone would fix that, rather than saying start at 5 minutes in and then say, okay, it's my lunch break, I'm going to go fix the problem later, despite, having started working on it and despite it being a clear issue that needs to be remedied.
Exactly. And people should, I feel that people should feel comfortable to ask, because I think I've been in some workplaces in my life where I haven't been comfortable to ask for time off. In fact, I remember when my wife had our second child, and I asked my boss for time off, and he said, no, mate, when my wife had a second child, I was 20,000 kilometres away in Vietnam, so you're not having any time off. Whilst he was a great guy and a great leader, I didn't agree with that, and I don't now. For us, we say to people, look, if you've got a swimming carnival on today for one of your kids, well, look, that swimming carnival is never, ever going to occur again. Mm-hmm. If your son or daughter comes number one today, you're going to miss it.
Yep.
So go and do it. But what we just ask in return is just, extra couple of hours one day, or something simple, a real flexible model.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be, as we were talking about, it doesn't have to be that rigid, okay, you miss out on this period of time, make sure that every hour's counted, or else Ian's going to come back and say, Jermaine, where's that 15 minutes that you should have given us? Because that's not what it's about. It's about sort of collectively working towards this goal, and often it is just helping clients and making sure that they're happy. Now, talk to me a bit more about PayMe. So, you guys do contract and contingent worker payroll. So, are you a software company, or are you? What do you?
No. In fact, what we really are, in simple terms, is we're an outsourced payroll company.
Okay.
So that I've used some industry language there, and it's for optimization on the website. Mm-hmm. but really, what it is when a person goes to a recruitment company, and say, for example, an information technology contractor goes to a recruitment company, gets a job, say in defence. Quite often, these people are well-paid fellows and women, and they're experts in their field, and they would normally be paid by a recruitment company. But a recruitment company's core business is to place people in a job, not to give complex payroll services. So if they, for example, need car leases, salary sacrifices, salary packaging, superannuation salary packaging, and some flexibility in when they get paid and how they get paid, they request our services, and the recruitment company outsources the payroll to us. How they do that is a matter of conjecture and probably out of the scope of today, but that's really what it boils down to, is we're an outsourced payroll company.
Right. Okay. So you effectively, just provide payroll services as as just one sort of business system that is
Exactly. And
independent of the recruiters.
exactly. And I know that it doesn't sound all that exciting, but, from when you're an employee and you look around at your own payroll element within your company, uh, you just wait for your pay each week. What we do is we act as the outsourced payroll component for the companies that we look after. And we have more contact with their employees than they do on pay issues.
Mm-hmm.
It's Monday. It's a routine, could I say? Monday morning, their timesheets come in. If their timesheets aren't in by 11 o'clock, then we text them, call them, email them, but usually call them. Say, hello, Bob, haven't got your timesheet yet. And they might have some issues that their supervisor's not there, so they haven't got it approved. Their recruitment company, in most cases, won't pay them that week.
Wow.
Now, I know that because I used to
Wow.
be a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
So what we do is if we understand that their supervisor's not there, we still assure them that we're going to pay them, even though their recruitment company might not pay us. So
Right.
it's their recruitment company might pay us the following week. So it's overcoming a lot of those hurdles to that uncertain work arrangement that people have when they undertake labour hire arrangements, and we put some certainty back into it so that they have a guaranteed payday. So it's Monday timesheets in, Wednesday pay slips go out, Friday morning. If the money's not in the bank in Friday morning when you wake up, you just call us,
Mm-hmm.
and we have it to you within 30 or 40 minutes.
That's amazing. So you're essentially adding a layer of almost certainty, or sort of almost a certainty of being an employee in terms of your wages and what your benefits are. But then you're a contractor. So I guess as an employer, you get the benefits of not having the same risks, or having sort of a different profile. So it's sort of basically someone who works with you with PayMe gets the best of both worlds, because contractors generally have higher pay rates, but then in turn, you lose XYZ employee benefits. So that's really interesting. I didn't realize that there was a market to what you guys do. Is it quite a big market, would you say?
Yeah, no, we operate Australia-wide, and
Okay.
we look after at the moment just under 1,000 people
Mm-hmm.
that we pay throughout a year. We would pay 4,000 to 5,000 people. They do come and go, but at the moment it's regularly 1,000. And that's in every state. So we pay them on behalf of their employer, which is, I won't go into the boring, legislative side of the house,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's important. It is important that they're not our employees. We
Yes.
pay them on behalf of their employers, and we quite often have such a close relationship with them, and the team talk to them on the phone rather than just send them an email. The first thing is talk, and you talk and understand about their family, everything else, and whether they've got problems like, heaven forbid that we've had issues where people have lost a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and they're suffering financial stress, and they don't ask to their employer for some help, but we might just give them a couple of weeks worth of an advance and say, look, go and look after yourself, and then come back to us when you've come back to work. And people like that, when those types of things happen, they stay with you, and they value the fact that they might pay a little bit more for the service, but they have a continuity of financial support. It doesn't matter where they work. So we essentially act as a hub for them. They might work for, say, People Bank
Right.
for 6 months. They might work for Paxis at another one of Paxis's clients. But PayMe is always paying them. If they want to they want to maintain the same person that provides them with tax support for the year, then our outsourced tax agent provides them that support. And we've had people using these services, even car leasing services through us, since 2006.
That's amazing. So you almost become again like this friend for these people that adds a layer of because being a contract, I would imagine, I've never been one, but you do jump from 6 month contract to 6 month contract to 3 month contract, and then there's you just become almost this asset that comes in, does what they need to do, and then leaves. That would obviously make it difficult to build ongoing work relationships with people because you're just jumping from place to place. So you guys are sort of adding that layer of at the very least, as far as their pay is concerned and their tax and all that side of things, there's this regular contact who's and it sounds like you could almost, it's almost in your interest to continue to serve them rather than necessarily serving the employer, so to speak, so that you can build this
Yeah.
rapport.
We try to focus on both.
Yeah, of course.
We really do. But we have four core values, and the first one is contractors are our priority, and then everybody is important, which includes their own employer, the recruitment company. Our actions speak louder than words. So getting in there and personally helping people, and growth through innovation, they're our four core values. Keep it simple, and through that, certainly I think over the years, as we've got more regulated in the Australian workplace environment, I've been mentored by one of the industry barristers, employment barristers, and I'm one of those people that really enjoys employment law and contract law. So it's very easy for someone that works in the contracting field to actually not know who their employer is, to suddenly find that they don't have workers' comp insurance, for example. You'd think that wouldn't happen, but it does happen. So I tend to put myself out there, which can be a risk sometimes, but I let people know, in my opinion, from a layman, what is the appropriate way to go. And just recently we started the Australian contractor community, which I don't think you would know about just yet.
No.
But it's something I started just before or just after COVID, just to let people know, have a central location for where contractors can come and get layman advice on what is a contractor, what's your employment status, what should your contract say, should you have are you an independent contractor or are you an employee? Boring stuff, I know, but it's not boring when it doesn't work. All of a sudden, when you're in the law course, you need to know what's going on. So, I have that there, and it's a site, a website, which is called Australian Contractors. It's about 90% complete, and it's also helping wherever we can find roles from some of our recruitment companies that we participate with. We're just about to start putting them up there because people are advertising roles much quicker and bypassing is the wrong word, finding new ways to employ people, given that they've got reduced numbers of people at work. So we're trying to help both employers, employees, anyone.
Yeah,
And
it
also
sounds
making
like,
people aware of
I mean,
things they can't forget.
it sounds like you've almost got this theme of just and I guess I preface this with the fact that I think business exists to help people, but sounds like all your businesses are really there to help people and sort of genuinely help people, not in the way that Apple, for example, or an HP would believe that they're helping people by selling them the latest laptop for $3,000 or whatever it may be, but adding actual help rather than necessarily, showing you the latest shiny object and selling it to you. Now, you've been in business for 15 years across 4 businesses. I'm sure it's 60 years worth of business knowledge that you've managed to develop. What are some of the things that stand out to you as sort of mistakes or things that you wouldn't do again, or you'd give someone younger as a heads up, watch out for these things? Anything come to mind?
Yes. What are the things that what are the typical mistakes that you can make, or things that you wouldn't want to do again, huh? It's a good question. I think the first one would be assuming that you know something. Getting advice off friends and thinking that it's factual. Um, I think that's important, because you can even go to, say, a subject matter expert and they'll give you the wrong advice. So I find having a 360 degree examination of something is just so important. So I think that's certainly the first aspect. The second aspect of doing business is recognising that you're going to fail sometimes, and not slitting your wrists when you do. You just say,
being kind to
okay,
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've just invested X amount of time, dollars, and you're going to fail. I think I'll give you a good example. My first overseas company I supported was an oil and gas company, and provided them with payroll support. We grew them from no one in Australia to I think 214 or so, 215 people throughout Australia in the oil and gas industry, and another 250 in Papua New Guinea. And because we worked to the beat that I spoke to you about before, day, week, we found that they couldn't work to the same beat because they didn't have employees that managed their contractors in the same way that we do. So that when we needed to have, say, for example, a timesheet and an invoice to pay on Tuesday, they didn't really worry about that too much. So they get it to the invoice to us on Wednesday. Well, when you move, $4 million a week to pay these people, it just can't magically appear between one bank account and the next. And the frustration that was caused internally with us was so large that that idea that we really had to support people that were foreign-owned companies, working people in Australia, $23 million contract. One day, my wife and I were just discussing it, and we said, "Hey, wouldn't it be better if we just turned it off?" So we did. And the lesson we learned from that was we put so many people under so much stress, and we couldn't deliver on our brand promise of waking up a guaranteed payday on Friday, because the people we were helping couldn't get us the money and couldn't get us the timesheets, so they were letting down their own team. So picking the right people, knowing that you will make mistakes and how to get over it is just as important as well. And I think one other thing, there would be one other thing I would say, and that is being aware of the whole environment that you work in. It's just so easy to think of something in a little tiny, you
bubble.
exist in this little ecosystem, but you actually exist in a really, really big one.
Yeah.
And I guess the outcome from that for me is that, we started with a small payroll company. We then acquired, put our own leasing company in place. We acquired a recruitment company, and it gave us that stability, because you never quite know when legislation is going to change. You don't think about legislation when you start business. What can happen? Payroll tax, all those types of things. How payroll tax impacts on you as you move into different states and territories. So looking at that whole ecosystem around you, the business ecosystem, and understanding it and watching it, very important.
I think some really good points there. I mean, talking about just the ecosystem story, it's, I think, or the point there is that it works both ways as well. Sometimes I think people can get too held up on what is really, in the grand scheme of things, a small problem, or a problem that no one else actually thinks is as big a deal. And quite, the opposite as well, where you can get so sort of lost in your own world that you don't see what's happening around you and what's changing around you, because in business you've got legislation. That's just one thing. You've got your competitors who are always looking to not necessarily beat you, but at least win more than they lose. So yes, they're not sort of coming after you, but it's important to keep sort of that sort of eye on everything that's going on. Now, speaking of competitors, do you guys have sort of some clear competitors in the market, or and how do you handle that?
Well, we have them all over Australia. And when you actually, good point you made earlier on, we are the largest payroll company in Australia. And I know that because we don't employ anyone other than the 8 or 9 people within PayMe. If I just talk about PayMe, I only employ my team in PayMe. Everyone we pay, we don't employ. Every other payroll company in Australia, they do that, but they also have a contract with, say, the government to supply labour, a workforce, and therefore they're not a payroll company anymore. They're actually under the various state legislation. They actually are then a labour hire supplier. So, and that contradicts with the fact that you're providing, pay to people. There have been people in this business in the past which have undermined that relationship with the recruitment company and taken the contractor away and looked after themselves, which is not entirely full of, well, it's not full of integrity. It lacks integrity so much. So I've actually gone off on a tangent there for a second.
That's all right.
Refresh me on the question again.
So we were talking about competitors and sort of
competitors. Yeah. So I keep a fair eye on my competitors as to how they operate. And I think for anyone that's watched Top Gun, actually, here's one. You might have heard there's this decision cycle, getting inside the enemy's decision cycle, where you observe how they operate. Certainly it was explained well in Top Gun, but it was something I learned in the military. Observe how they operate. You orient yourself to acting a different way. Decide how you're going to act to the threat, and then you act in a way that's faster than your competitors, and then you do that faster and faster and faster and faster. And that's a practice that we get into again through our huddle our weekly meeting. Is we actually have a section we call it intelligence, competitors intelligence, where we bring it up and we say, what are the competitors doing, so that we can act faster, and not necessarily put them out of business or anything, but be ahead of them. Because I don't like the term putting people out of business.
I mean, that's not your goal. It's not to take something away from them. It's just to reinforce what you've got. I think, it doesn't have to, they don't have to be the same thing. You don't have to attack someone to beat them. You don't even have to beat someone to be better and grow. It's just about having that loop. And that's another, definite benefit of that huddle idea, because I think what you're doing there is really thinking faster by meeting every day, where everyone else meets weekly or even quarterly. What you're doing is out meeting them, and therefore I would think you've got 28 people coming in with their what they've heard, what they've been told, what their friends and family have come up with. So you're getting almost hundreds of ideas on a daily basis, or the potential for, rather than every quarter. I mean, I don't know about you, but generally I'm so busy that I forget what I even had for breakfast yesterday, let alone ideas to mention to someone that XYZ's coming up with this thing. But when it's been done on a daily basis, you only need to remember it for 24 hours, or it can be as simple as, oh, did you see that TV ad for this company? Where you wouldn't mention a TV ad in a quarterly meeting, because it's a quarterly meeting. You've got much bigger things to talk about, and it's probably a full day event. So, hey, I think you've got me converted, and I think not that I was against it, but I think I'm going to talk to the team and sort of suggest that we meet for 10, 15 minutes every day. And it probably even helps sort of at an individual level to come up with your to-do list, because otherwise you just end up working on just pointless things sometimes.
Look, you're spot on. And in fact, what we find is that if Maria and I don't get to work on time, or if we get distracted, the team are already lined up in the boardroom, standing up, ready to huddle. They just simply can't go without it. It's something they look forward to every day. It's that exchange of information, ideas, and then we carry that on to having lunch with them every day. We all sit down when we can have a break, and we break bread, have lunch with them, and then have on Fridays when it's usually a lower pressure day. We actually have a good team lunch and do some lessons and some professional development. And funnily enough, read the Canberra, get the quizzes out of the Canberra Times and run through those. So we have a great laugh. It just helps bind the team.
Yeah, that is really amazing. And it just sort of brings in that family sort of vibe. It's almost like growing up, I remember we used to do the puzzles and all that stuff in the newspaper, and that's sort of something you do on a Sunday, and you're sort of bringing that to work on a Friday, which is awesome. And it's a nice sort of positive way to even get into your weekend, so that your weekend's not so much de-stressing and getting prepped for another hard week at work. It's you've got into that sort of nicer sort of mindset moving into the weekend. Now, tell me a little bit about what you guys hope to do moving forward. Is it sort of business as usual, or are you hoping to do some different and exciting things moving forward across the different companies and PayMe?
Yeah, look, we're planning on expanding again, and growing. If I put the payroll company aside for a moment, the payroll company's going very well. We have so much business, we're actually slowing it down coming in because the demand's there. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. So we've got that there. The car leasing business, it's focused on Canberra. At the moment, we're very lucky in Canberra where we've still got a good percentage of jobs, of good hype, and anyone on any salary can benefit from having a car lease. There's two ways to run a car. The normal way, which is the most expensive, or for most people, a novated lease will allow them to have a much more cost-effective way to run a company. So we're going to be focusing on that. And of course, our recruitment company, without in any way addressing the people that are in PayMe, we're looking at supporting other contractors and doing it in a way. And I think this is really important. Doing it in a way that is legislative and legally correct, so that the individual knows that they are our employee for a short-term period, which finishes at the end of every engagement, and that they know that they're employed and that they have that regular contact with us and regular pay, and they're looked after. So I'm not saying that doesn't exist in the rest of Australia, but if you go around Australia, say with a recruitment company, and ask recruiters who is the employer of these contractors, you'll get answers from everyone except me. We're not the employer. The payroll company's the employer. But really, if you control somebody, you hire and fire them, you're the employer.
Yeah. Especially in Australia with the legislation in place, you don't have to call yourself an employer to be the employer in the eyes of the law.
Exactly.
You can give yourself whatever terminology you want. I mean, even in a lot of cases, I think I've heard of a lot of contractors who are actually employees. If you look at the government sort of the legislated definitions around it, just because you pay them, for in a different structure to what you would an employee, you, for all intents and purposes, they are an employee. You were just illegally paying them as a contractor because it's better for you.
Exactly. And we won't do business with people that want to say to a worker, go and create your own proprietary limited company and then we'll employ you. That is contrary to the Fair Work Act. And I'll tell people that. and they can choose to believe it and then act within the law, or if they don't believe it, they can go to someone else. I don't care, but I'm not getting involved in something that's contrary to the law and puts that worker at risk. So yeah, that philosophy is something that we putting across Australia. Simple philosophy. It's just integrity, and so we've got some ideas to expand effective people, and with our business coach, we're investigating those in the last week of this month with our key leadership team, and also considering a couple of acquisitions. That's, unfortunately, it's a good time for acquisitions because it's not a good time for many businesses, but an acquisition can help people keep jobs and can help delivering those services to people that would lose them if those companies went under. So we see it as a good opportunity to do something more and continue to help the community. And for us at the moment, our focus is, certainly as I get a bit older, is on the veteran community. Really focusing in on the unique skills that veterans bring to Australia, to the workplace, I should say, and understanding how the older veteran like me is quite comfortably looked after through Veterans Affairs, and the younger veteran is very, very frustrated and not getting through to Veterans Affairs and other locations. And it's not through lack of trying, but I'm trying to identify why that communication isn't occurring without upsetting anybody. It's just a teamwork thing. So they're things we're putting our corporate social responsibility into assisting veterans in having employment, understanding how they move from the uniform job into a contract role. And lately, one of our later initiatives is we can assist them with security clearances. So long as we've got a job for them to go to, we can assist them with security clearances, which in the past were quite hard. So we've got our 5-year plan as to where we want to go, and we've achieved our 5-year plan every year since we first did it, which I think was about 2008.
That's awesome. I think again, it speaks for having a plan to help and assist with knowing where you want to go and where you're heading as well. I think having that plan always helps. And just touching on your point about the acquisitions as well, I think rather than, given the current climate, for better or worse, one, you can help a company that would otherwise go bust, and then everyone else involved would suffer. But also from the other point of view, you can acquire the goodwill, the branding, the marketing, and the efforts that someone else has already put in, rather than going out there and having to expend a lot of energy and money to what is really a gamble to see if you'll even get to that same position that someone has. So I think a lot of people look at acquisitions as sort of this negative thing, or sort of this, I don't even know, like a whale just eating up the smaller fry. But you've got to look at it in the opposite as well. I've heard of people who are not in a space at all, who don't even have a business, who just acquire a business because they've got the financial resources to, and get into business that way and then grow the business from there. So that's really exciting for you guys.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's and look, we manage it all centrally from here in Brisbane, because these days, and I think this is how when COVID hit, we didn't miss a beat. I think the only thing I had to buy was 4 wireless modems to help some people that didn't have enough bandwidth at their home. Our infrastructure was already in place to support remote operations, because our business continuity plan needed it. Because we had got people in Brisbane, the Brisbane River floods, so we've got to be able to work at home. People in Canberra, if the building burnt down, we'd have to operate externally from home. So we've always had that there, and we've used it, by the way, and for real, we've practiced it. So it worked well, and it also helps with acquisitions and expansions, because you just bolt it on and it continues to grow.
Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Where can people find out more about you and your businesses?
Look, PayMe Group, our website, PayMe Group, it's just a very high level summary of the three companies, the three main companies, and it takes you through to the websites. And of course, locally, I really can't go past the Riot Act. The
Mhm.
Riot Act, hear the stories about our successes and failures, and you can identify PayMe, Alliance Leasing, and Effective People just by going to the Riot Act, and you'll be able to identify the personalities because their photos will be there, and a little bit about them and a little bit about us.
Awesome. Amazing. Are you ready to roll into the top 12?
Okay, let's see how we go, mate. Yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Let's get into it. So the top three books or podcasts that you recommend.
I'm really into books. I am, and I think the most important one to me is a fable. Well, the name it's called "The Five Dysfunctions of a Team" by Pat Lencioni. The second one is "Leadership in Action" by Major General John Campbell.
Mhm.
And the third one is actually the Rockefeller Habits that we've spoken about today. I certainly recommend reading the Rockefeller Habits, but also attending a seminar that's put on by a trainer, because the book itself's a little dry, and you don't get some of the excitement that I enjoy out of it. But they're the three books that I regularly revisit.
Awesome. Top three software or tools that you can't live without.
The top three tools for me are firstly Microsoft Office 365 and SharePoint. It's there. No matter where you are in the world, you can get access and get access securely, and you can use it. Internally within the company, the intranet, which is, for those that don't know about intranets, it's just a central place to go to find out the key pieces of information, the knowledge base that occurs within the company, so that you don't have to find it in all the places that are usually hidden in a business. And thirdly, our strategic planning tool. I look back on that every day. Where was I supposed to go? How am I getting towards it? They're the three pieces of software that I can't do without.
What tool is that? Is that a tool that you guys have developed, or is that an external sort of software that you've
No,
purchased?
I do purchase the strategic planning software. It's called Line. It's made by actually a company that works with the person that came up with the Rockefeller Habits, Vern
Oh,
Harnish.
okay.
So again, I can start the day every day by looking at an electronic version of a huddle, prepare the week with the electronic, a way of recording what I plan to do, and most importantly, what people said last week that they were going to achieve, so we can hold each other accountable to it. And then in the long run, what's our purpose? What are our core values? All those things are there in perpetuity, and we can review them regularly.
Yeah, wow, amazing. I didn't know such a thing existed, but sounds like a handy tool. The top three mantras you try and live by.
Look, unquestionably, people do business with people they trust. That's you've got to have fun doing business. If you go somewhere and see someone, nothing in your hand, nothing in your head, is a phrase we use. So you always take a notebook when you go and see someone. Otherwise, you're not showing that you've got interest in what they're doing. And the last one is the fundamental thing to everything that we do within PayMe Group: unquestionable integrity.
Love it. Love it. And the last one, top three people you follow or study and why.
So I guess I'm a little bit old school. I like to look at what people have done and learnt from lessons from them. So I look at Weary Dunlop,
Mm-hmm.
okay, from World War II, and I think he passed away in perhaps the early 2000s. I can't recall now, but his characteristics of being fair, firm, and friendly are something that I hold near and dear. And the fact that he dedicated his whole life to helping people after the war, Second World War. Likewise, Major General Pompey Elliott, who many people won't have heard of today, but if you were alive in World War One, you unquestionably would have heard of Pompey Elliott. In fact, he opened more Anzac memorials than anybody else ever has, and sadly passed away through what's now known as post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
Sometime after World War One, when he was practicing his other profession, which was a lawyer, but the stresses of losing people during the war and other things got to him, and likewise John Cantwell, who I did my initial training with in the army, and he grew from being a private soldier to being, the best of my knowledge anyway, the only person promoted on the battlefield to Major General since World War II. He was promoted to Major General in some of the recent campaigns, and then came back to be Chief of Army, but he was suffering bad post-traumatic stress disorder and couldn't take up that role. And he's now no longer in the army, of course, but he wrote Leadership in Action, and the concepts and ideas in that book don't just apply to military; they apply to anybody. And I think that sums up him, because a normal fellow, not someone that you'd always characterise as purely military.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, that was a very solid top 12, Ian. And thanks for your time, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
No, my pleasure, Jermaine. It's really been great. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Awesome.